Most of the times, there are parents who come to me and feel that their child is going through a lot of challenging behaviors, and it's becoming very difficult for them to manage those behaviors. Now, when this kind of a thing happens, it is important to consider a lot of things. There are a lot of factors that may cause challenging behaviors, and most commonly, when parents come to me when their child has autism or ADHD or a sensory processing disorder, every behavior is attributed and it is connected to a sensory issue. So if the child is hitting himself, it's a sensory issue. If the child is mouthing, it's a sensory issue. If the child is jumping, it's a sensory issue. If the child is toe walking, it's a sensory issue. This is how most parents tend to think, and that's how they come to me basically. So my point when I mention this is not to deny, my intention is not to deny the presence of sensory issues, but my intention is to broaden the way we look at behaviors. If a child is mouthing a lot, it could be sensory. It could be because child is feeling anxious, and by putting things in the mouth, he's trying to calm his system. And we need to know, why is this mouthing behavior coming up? And if this mouthing behavior is coming up, then what is it that has got changed in the surroundings that has triggered it to happen? So what I'm trying to convey is there are a lot of reasons why the sensory issue may come up. Why the sensory issues are coming up? Because the child is anxious, and there could be many factors which make a child anxious. So the point that I'm trying to convey is, instead of working on, okay, he's tiptoeing, let's work on his feet. Oh, he's mouthing something, oh, let's work around his mouth. Oh, he's hyperactive, let's do some proprioception. Those things would help. But if there is some other reason for those behaviors, it's very important that we understand those behaviors, we understand those reasons, so that we can help our child better. Last week I was talking to a parent, and she mentioned her son is not able to sleep. And not being able to sleep means that the system is not able to shut down, and the system doesn't feel safe enough to shut down. That's how I see it. And there could be many, many, many reasons. This is with respect to the child that I'm talking about right now. So this child was not able to shut down. He was hitting himself. He was engaging in a lot of self-stimulatory behaviors, and the child was non-verbal, so he could not convey what he was feeling. Whenever he is taken to a new place, those behaviors would increase, and it became very difficult for the mother to manage it. Now, these behaviors were more in front of the mother, but they were not so much in front of the father, and he was fairly manageable. So if it's a sensory issue, he won't be able to manage in front of the mother and not manage in front of the father, or vice versa. The child would find it difficult in all surroundings. The sensory issues would be there. And the work that was done with this child was only on taking care of the sensory issues. And this child continued to not sleep, hit himself, to the point that first it was hitting himself, and now this child started hitting others. His mom, his maid, everybody around. Now what I'm trying to convey here is, I don't know what is the solution right now. In this short video, I'm not going to go into a detailed description. My focus in this was to talk about how to prepare your child. That's what I wanted to know, wanted to convey to you. Because if I'm not preparing my child enough, I am making the child anxious, and that anxiety will cause increased behavioral challenges, which is what it seems like to me. But for the child, that is his way of communicating, if the child is non-verbal. And even if the child is verbal, or sometimes even when we are verbal, when we are in the midst of that stressful situation, we lose our ability to be able to speak or voice out in a more coherent, matured, logical manner. We also end up having a tantrum. I do that even now. So the point that I'm trying to convey is that there are many factors. There would be sensory, there would be to check whether the parent is stressed out. Am I passing my fears, my stresses on my child? Knowingly, unknowingly, not judging the parent, not judging at all. That is how it happens. But there could be many factors, and one factor that I want to talk about in this video today is preparing your child. So this particular child, when he wanted something, or whenever there was a change in his routine, he would have a tantrum. Whenever he didn't have a schedule in place, he didn't know what would happen first, he didn't know what would happen next, he didn't know how long each activity would last, he didn't know where he was taken. Imagine if I have to go to a vacation. I mean, I once we had to go to Gujarat to watch those Gir lions, and I know what lions look like, but I was like, how would we see? What would the desert jeep look like? What would the room look like? Where would we stay? What would we have for breakfast? What would we have for lunch? There were like a lot of questions that I had in my mind. And my husband showed me, see, this is the hotel that I planned, and this is how the jeep would look like. Do you want to go in that big one? I forget the name now, which is like covered from all sides, or you want to sit in that safari jeep? So there was a lot of involvement and a conversation between me and my husband and my son, and we decided collectively on where do we want to stay, what do we want to do, and we were very clear on what we would do on day 1, what we would do on day 2, and so on. Now, if I take a child, and if I take a child straight away to a dentist, and the child doesn't know he's going to go to a dentist, what will happen there? He has no idea. If I take a child suddenly to a doctor's office, if I take a child suddenly to a new therapy center, if I take a child suddenly to a new school, have I prepared the child enough? And if I'm not prepared, I think it's important that I prepare. It's very, very, very important that I explain all of those things to the child. And so if I'm taking a child to a new school, for example, or to a new therapy center, imagine if I'm the child and if I'm not prepared and you take me to a therapy center and I don't know which this place is, who is around, what are they going to do with me? Are they safe? Are they not safe? Will they take care of me? My anchor, my parent is not with me. I feel anxious, and when I'm anxious, I would mouth a lot. I may not be able to sleep at night if the stress is too much for me to cope. I may not be able to maintain those behaviors where I would be calm, but I would be stressed out, because as a child, I am stressed out. I don't know where you're taking me. And many a times, therapy centers, the places, the child is there from morning till evening. So it's like from 8 to 12 or 8 to 3 and so on. It's true, it takes time for every child to get settled. And what I'm only trying to tell you is, and I'm not against sending a child to a therapy center, I want, if we can prepare the child well in advance, See, and I take photos. See, this is what the therapy center is going to look like. You see, this is the therapist who will work with you. And this is what they would do. These are the kinds of activities that they do. I can take the child 2 to 3 times before, and I could show the child, or I could take videos. I mean, I could see videos of people doing therapies and show him, see, this is what we're going to do there. Mama would be around, Mama won't be around, Papa would be around, Papa won't be around. Whatever, it's important that I convey everything to the child. I still remember the first day when I sent my son to school, and I was scared, but my son could talk, and I can really imagine how it would be feeling to you as a parent when you're dropping them to a therapy center, knowing that it would be difficult for the child to convey to you about what he's feeling. So all the more reason to prepare the child. My focus here is to prepare your child for everything well in advance. That, we go to this place, we'll go by bus, describe it in details, draw it, make it into a story. Let the child see it every day. Prepare him a month in advance, a week in advance, prepare him. And I think at this point of time, when I am at my age where I am, and if I'm still asking my husband, where are we going to go? What would it look like? And we talk and we we explain to each other, then I think a child does deserve that. Many parents tell me that if we prepare for everything, how would he learn? How would he learn to, manage and so many things? And I feel life will give us and your child enough opportunities to practice those skills where he will have to learn. We can prepare our kids. We can ensure that a child knows where he is going, why he is going, how long would he go, what would happen there, when will he come back home, so that he's able to cope with things easier and better, and we don't end up having behavioral challenges and we say, oh God, before we sent him to school he was fine, now why is he behaving like this? I remember one parent who sent me an email and they said, my child was so much calmer and suddenly he's become very hyperactive, suddenly he's hitting himself, suddenly all this happened. And then when I asked them, suddenly when that happened, what were the changes that happened? And usually it's like, oh, we shifted our place, or he was unwell, or there is always a reason. And if we know what that reason is and we help the child out for that reason by preparing the child well in advance, visually explaining things would be much more easier for your child and for you also. The child would still find it difficult, he may still have challenging behaviors, but not at the intensity that it disrupts the sleep, the entire behavior goes for a toss, So I hope I'm able to make it very clear and explain that preparing your child well in advance, wherever you go, whatever that's expected is important. And if your child is not communicating, use a schedule, use a communication board, use some form of communication where the child knows and can express to you whether he wants it or he doesn't want it. And if he doesn't want it, he would show it in the body language, he would show it in his facial expressions. And by now, after so many years of practice and being a mother myself, I know that as a parent, we have this internal radar within us which guides us whether this place is the right place, whether these behaviors are stress related behaviors and my child can manage, or these behaviors are overwhelmed behaviors which my child cannot manage. So what I'm trying to convey through this video is that there are many reasons for challenging behaviors, difficult behaviors, self-stimulatory behaviors, whatever name we call it, and we need to know the reason for it. Once we know what's the reason for it, it becomes easier, and preparing them visually is important. I hope this helps you. Thank you.